Welcome to the Hired Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell, Community Engagement Lead at Pathify. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. The Hired Geek Podcast is a proud member of the Enrollify Podcast Network, a robust collection of shows designed to help higher education professionals like you grow every day. Explore all of our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Hello, everybody. We are here with another super special live episode recorded in person here in San Diego at the ASU GSV Air Show. I'm very excited to have our guest today, somebody from Calbright College, an innovative new institution, part of the California Community College system. I will not steal his thunder, though. He'll be better able to explain it, but I saw that he was here, his role focusing on student services and this kind of just cool new institution. I was really excited to just have a little bit of time with him to hear his perspective on the work that he does and how AI is impacting it. So, Don, if you want to just give everybody a brief introduction of yourself and your professional background, and also just like what excites you about an event like this.
Great. Thanks, Dustin. My name is Don Orth. I'm Vice President of Student Services and Success at Calbright College. Super excited to be here. Appreciate the invite. My professional background, I come from K-12. I spent about 15 years in K-12, started off as an English teacher, moved to administration, kind of looking to really starting to shape schools. From there, I actually worked about 10 years at Apple in product marketing in the education group. There, my work was really to speak to education leaders and help them understand kind of the value and the promise of technology. And now at Calbright for the last year, my role is really to lead a team of the student-facing folks at Calbright, really to help understand our adult learners and support them in all kind of ways. So it's super exciting. There's a huge opportunity there. In terms of this event, I think, AI is relatively new. I mean, it's been around forever, but now it's kind of mainstream. And so it's really nice to see as we build our college, what are folks doing out there? What are kind of all the examples of applications? And we're just scratching the surface for sure, but it's really great to see some of the vendors we've been talking to, some of the companies, what the product looks like, what the promise is, looking at the roadmaps, and seeing how it kind of aligns with the work we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of an interesting recognition is that people will bring this up every once in a while. It's like AI has been around for a while. If you use Siri or, Alexa on your various smart devices or, Gmail auto-completes your email, different things like that. It's been around, but it is within the education context is this unique moment where it has become more mainstream. It's on a lot of people's minds. A lot of people are, like you said, you are kind of figuring out how to integrate it into their strategy and everything. So it is, I guess to me, and I think we equalized a little bit where I feel like last year there was a lot of hesitancy and worry and all that, where we're kind of getting more to the kind of calibration of okay, let's, take a measured approach and, look at this with kind of a scrutinizing eye. And we're here on the show floor. There's a lot of, companies here that are, all coming at different problems from their different vantage points and everything. But, and I know, I guess just to kind of give Calbright College a little bit more of a focus briefly, because I went to a session that you were part of a panel with a bunch of folks from Calbright that was just kind of speaking about your approach when it came to kind of equity and student outcomes and everything. And that was just super great for me because I knew of Calbright. I thought it was just a very kind of exciting new venture, but then to hear it from you and your team and just the amazing work and everything. If you want to kind of just encapsulate, I guess, sort of Calbright, what it is, what it aims to do, just to make sure everybody listening kind of can appreciate the magic.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. Calbright was founded in 2019. We are state funded and we are one of California's community colleges. We are the only online statewide community college in California, which is pretty exciting. And, there's a lot of unique things about us in addition to that. We are focused on adult learners, 25 and older, who have high school diploma or GED, and that's really basically the requirement, California, and having that degree or certification. And what we're trying to do is really help folks who are in service level jobs, gig work, kind of working adult learners who haven't had the educational opportunities that a lot of America has, actually a smaller percentage than the folks out there who need these opportunities. We're trying to connect them to the knowledge economy. And there is kind of a big education piece as part of the path to get there. And so we're working really hard. We're growing like crazy. We are almost 4,500 students right now. We are literally growing, by hundreds and hundreds every month. We're rolling admission also, which is kind of cool. So we accept a new cohort of students every week. And the reason for a lot of the choices we've made is really to remove obstacles for our students. So we don't even think about like rebuilding better the kind of format of traditional education. We're really thinking of the folks that we serve and what is the experience they need to have, because they're not necessarily, haven't been to school potentially in decades, right? A lot of our adult learners, our average adult learner is, late 30s. And so potentially, if high school was their last experience, it's been a couple decades that they've been there. So a lot has changed, and a lot of folks haven't even had experience online learning. So there's a lot of kind of support and foundational things we need to do for our learners to make the experience good and to help them be successful.
Yeah, I think that's what's fascinating. Like part of my admiration is that notion of like, if you were to, one, start a new institution like today, how would it look different? And also one that is more tailored and contoured to serving that particular audience, because a lot of institutions are grappling with that notion of like, well, we need to be able to recruit and serve more adult learners, but they're trying to kind of like, shoehorn that in, or kind of like, hook, their trajectory of where they, kind of heading, be like, kind of go this way. So it's like
they've got to change a lot of things.
Yeah, and it's just like it takes a lot to shift an institution that was, maybe hundreds of years old, like not built to do that and everything. So like just that notion of like an exciting opportunity and challenge, and just very kind of refreshing to be able to be in a place to not have so much sort of
historical kind of baggage.
That weight, the baggage on it. So I guess like if you could just kind of even speak to that of like, because hearing from like your whole team, it just feels like, you have a group of people that I think recognize the opportunity that provides. Obviously, you're confronting a big challenge of supporting adult learners, but like, let's go to like the culture, I guess, of an institution that is years old, and, that you're growing and everything.
That's a great question. And before I answer that, actually, I should also add another unique thing about Calbright is that we're competency based, so that we are skills based, and it's about kind of learning the skills, not necessarily time and seats. So it's great and powerful for our learners because they can come in with life experiences and potentially be part of through the program before they even start the curriculum. So that's critical, but there are a lot of obstacles that puts in front of us in terms of navigating the system. But in terms of, what it's like to be in a place that we're building from the ground up, we are higher ed, we are a college, so that is probably some of the only traditional structure that we have. But here's the great thing, we are also a product-based, product-driven organization, which means that we're really focused on the user. And that means we're not building a thing and then inviting folks to come into us. We're understanding our user, our adult learner first. And then what do we build? What do we need? And so every system we choose, every choice we make, every design, every support we build is really based on the learner. And so one of the ways that works is that we have a partnership with UCI and Ideas 42, and they have helped us build kind of an innovation engine that really is kind of manifests as kind of a rapid pilot in design. And because we have rolling admission, we can try things out very quickly. We have a new cohort of students coming every week, so we potentially can say, hey, what if we did this? Would this help our student? And of course, we are very responsible, but we also know that even if we make make it a little bit better, that is better than we were before. And so kind of this rapid design and prototype with kind of in partnership with Ideas 42 and UCI is great. So some of the things we've tried, for instance, and actually found real success is building a collaborative timeline with students. So a timeline comes in. Here's the interesting thing. You think that online flexible learning, right? This is actually, there's no semester system, they're rolling. So they can kind of finish in whatever time they need. And we do that because these are folks, they're caretakers, they're working multiple jobs. They don't have a ton of time, so it's important that it be flexible. Something that's too flexible is almost impossible to navigate, right? If you have all the time in the world, and they don't have all the time in the world, but if they do, to do something, it's harder to do, right? There's less anchors, there's kind of less sense of how am I doing? So kind of our first kind of design sprint with Ideas 42 and UCI was really exploring this idea of a timeline. Like let's talk about the time they have available to them, what they're willing to spend, and agree on a timeline to complete their work. And then kind of our support teams work with them to say, hey, you're doing great, you're right on track, or hey, you're a little behind, how about this? Hey, is something in your way? Do you need a little more time But it's this partnership now about helping them navigate the journey forward. And that's super powerful. Another thing we're trying out right now is learning communities. We know that when people feel like they belong and they're part of a group of people, which is hard to do when you're online, you can feel very alone. But kind of the concept and the hypothesis, and there's tons of research out there, when you feel belonging, there's more success. But we're kind of trying that right now and looking at if people opt in and are part of a cohort and kind of have this group experience entering Calbright, does that help and accelerate their success and also make them kind of more committed? Because the other thing I didn't say is that Calbright's free right now. And so, again, double-edged sword, it's free, so it's easy to sign up. You sign up, you say, hey, I'd like to try it, but there's no real skin in the game. So we're kind of looking at what is the commitment? How do you kind of get a sense of commitment when something is free and very accessible? How do you help students feel like I signed up for this, like I'm committed to it? I want to make sure that I'm successful at the end.
Yeah, I mean, those are things that are really exciting for me because I think, if anybody thinks back to MOOCs, and certainly now the biggest, best example of that is Coursera. I think organizations like that struggle with that sort of notion. And I think it's they kind of, for the most part, I feel kind of we're saying that it's not something that we can really address, and especially not at the scale that they're aspiring towards, but it's almost recognizing and trying to bake in at these sort of early stages, those kind of things, or at least test them out to be okay, maybe this is not what our community is looking for right now. It's not going to be something that helps, but it's you're taking at least that perspective of let's, do that discovery, let's try it out, let's do pilot, and just be trying to find those areas of sort of marginal improvement, just continuous improvement, everything. So,
and we constantly are, we're very collaborative and we pay attention to our students. We don't kind of design anything without checking in with our students and saying, hey, is this something that might fit? Or we have an idea and we kind of put it in front of them and say, is this something that you might benefit from? We have student body organization, we have student ambassadors, so there's a lot of students we have access to regularly, and also kind of our general, student body. So we are always checking in, always kind of saying, is this working for you? Is this an idea that might be valuable? Or getting feedback from them all the time. We have a staff, and my team specifically is dedicated to frontline support for students. We're counseling career services, we're student life, we're persistence team. And so we're constantly getting feedback from students all the time. And they're telling us, this is great, this actually isn't so great. This is where kind of I tripped up. And so we take that feedback very, very seriously. And, I mentioned before, we're a product-driven organization. That feedback goes right to product as we design solutions, as we design our infrastructure. So there's a real cross-collaboration between product, between the student support team, between learning and instruction, and we're designing together, looking at the problems and building solutions together, which is also not very common because so many institutions are siloed and they say, the instructional team, they're going to have to do this thing, and support team, do whatever you need to do. The same with product and technology, that's often kind of aside, and they're throwing out solutions without really consulting, how is that going to impact? So I think one of the other cool things about Calbright is that we have this really cross-functional team that designs together.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll just say, because I heard you and your colleagues speaking about it in that session, it was just incredible to hear, and just hearing you kind of speak to it more in depth just from your perspective. It is so awesome. You all are a college, but it's it feels like I'm talking to somebody who's in ed tech, and just kind of you're taking sort of the best practices, all the things, and the idea of just I guess mostly leaving behind a lot of just kind of the kind of hang-ups and sort of
some of the obstacles that get in the way of progress in regular institutions. And not that they don't want to change, but it's really hard because there's so many mechanisms in place that prevent change. Or to get everybody to agree on something together, this is the direction. That's hard too, because you could have lots of great ideas, but if those barriers are existing and in place, we sometimes get in the way of ourselves, right?
Yeah, well, and even, what you're getting at too around your rolling admissions and that ability to kind of quickly test something where okay, if there's this, new batch of students coming in, they don't know any different. We can kind of just, do something, and there's not really precedent that we have to deal with, and that other institutions, for better or worse, will have to often be well, we'll launch this at the start of whatever semester or next academic year or whatever else. So it could be where you get some good momentum going, and it gets kind of halted because it's just well, does it make sense to launch it now? I don't know, maybe in the middle of a semester, probably not. So yeah, just really, really fascinating stuff. And I guess just the last two quick questions. I'm kind of asking everybody this. So curious, with the Air Show, AI, front of mind, this whole event. How do you see AI currently impacting your work, or how do you see it sort of impacting it in the near future?
Yeah. And I'll say related to that before I get right to that answer is that, we talk about kind of innovating as Calbright and kind of looking for better solutions and having, fewer barriers that get in our way of trying things out and change. We see ourselves as a lab school, and we are a community college. We are part of the community college system, and that's kind of our task as well. We've been tasked with find solutions that will also scale to the other community colleges as well. So we take kind of this exploration and not experimentation, but piloting and design process. We take that very seriously. And it's not just for our own benefit, but it's for the whole system. What works? Is this going to work for the whole system? And so that is something that's kind of top of mind whenever we try something out. And we're tasked to share it out too. Our board is the whole community college system board in California. So they are hearing constantly the work we're doing and sharing it with the other systems. So in terms of here and kind of the opportunities, I think, we are looking, like I said, we're kind of building from the ground up. And right now we are looking at AI for a lot of things. And I think probably like everyone, we're like, hey, here's a problem. Is AI kind of part of the solution set? For instance, college counseling and career services, that's part of my team. And there's a ton of really interesting examples out there of what folks are doing with AI. Can it be a career counselor? Can it kind of start the student journey and kind of get students a little ways in before they speak to someone human? And we want to be really careful, of course, because part of it is our adults, our learners, the learners that we are really focused on supporting and empowering are also vulnerable populations. They are students who haven't been served by the system necessarily before. And so I always think, do they really want to talk to an AI chatbot, or, is that kind of breaking trust? So one, kind of transparency when we start bringing AI tools, I think is critical. Like, we're not going to pretend AI is not AI, right? So that's a piece, and demonstrating value to the student is really critical. But also kind of just building our team out. I mean, AI is going to be a team member, right? They're going to be a part of our whole kind of product and our whole solution. And so also working with our teams, how do they interact with AI? Where does AI kind of take some of the burden off? And it's not just the student-facing stuff. It's some of the kind of logistical work that we're doing in the background. It's building efficiencies and giving our teams tools so that they can spend more time with the student and supporting the student. I think that's really the bigger picture is, you can only have so many staff and so many instructors. Would love to have, a team around every single student. Wouldn't that be cool? Having like a team of 5 or 6, like this is your personal team. They're gonna like be with you every step of the way, whatever you need. And we do that, we're designing that. That's kind of how I see it. Like, how do we build like this really powerful team around each student? Now, you can't really do it, but you can with the assistance of technology. So where are the places that AI can kind of take some of that edge off, take some of the burden out, so that it increases the value of the human interactions that we have. And again, I don't think that's a new idea at all, but it's something that we are actively kind of pursuing, and it's something that we can put in place. And so, there's several vendors that we've been talking to, and super excited again, because we have this design model and prototyping, we can try things out and say, hey, we can even talk to a group of students and say, hey, we want to try this out. This is, we think, a really powerful tool to help you shift into a new career, to help you prep for it. And it will work with the career services team. And this is how. Would you like to try it? Right? So there's things that we can do. And like I said, we have an immense amount of respect for our students. And so that collaboration with them, it's not just us serving them, but working with them to create the best solutions.
Yeah. And I think, that idea of like allowing them to opt in to certain things, like that idea,
sure.
It's like, hey, totally cool if you don't want to do this. We're just going to like try to test stuff out. And I think, so areas like that, I think like, at least try to have easier on ramps to get services feels like a really natural place to where you could have that, like, I do like that a lot of the, AI tools that you're seeing now are kind of fancying themselves as like the co-pilot, the assistant and all that. So it's like, okay, if I have like my campus app and I have a question, if I know I could start at this thing, that again is like transparently just like, hey, I'm your AI assistant. Mm-hmm. Like, let me know what's going on. And you just ask in a very natural language, a question or whatever, it makes sure that you are just like fast tracked to be like, it sounds like you could use some support from a career counselor. Here's the best ways to get in touch with them, a way to schedule an appointment, or like whatever, other resources or things that maybe you can do to take action on. Because I think that sometimes is like you have like an earnest desire to do something as a student to get support. And if it's like, if you hit a wall somewhere, friction, whatever, you might just sort of bail out and stuff. So it's like, okay, let's make sure if nothing else, kind of like, I guess what I'm taking away from what you're saying is like potentially maybe use AI to kind of streamline those like on-ramps to get you in touch with the person.
Well, and here's the thing I mentioned in the session the other day is that, our student, when they need help, they don't care who gives them help. They do, yes, but they're not like, I need an instructor particularly, or I need a peer tutor, or I need a student support specialist, or I need someone else. They just need help, right? So what is the kind of the best model for that help? How do we make sure that we are serving them like as soon as they need it so that we don't kind of block? We are constantly removing obstacles. Kind of Calbright was designed to lower kind of the obstacles that are out there for our students. So in the same way, every design piece, every kind of support system we have is meant to lower the threshold for a student getting support and being successful. And we have a very targeted mission. We are trying to move people into new careers. And so that focus, I think, really helps the way we were designing. We're not trying to do a million things. We're trying to do a few things. We're also working with employers to lower the threshold for what they're asking for from our students, right? Do you really need a BA in 5 years to kind of for an entry-level IT support job? Not really. I've worked in those, you just don't. And so it's really helping educate the employers and kind of extracting, what do you really need? What are those skills you need? And then we can kind of look at, as we build our programs, how do we make sure our programs are giving our students the skills they need? And then the last piece is experience, right? How do you start giving experience? It's not just enough to have kind of a program and some academic skills, but the experiences in real life application to kind of help bolster kind of career searches.
Yeah. Well, and I guess just to piggyback on my own point from before, I'm just like that you speak, and I feel like Calbright operates at what I feel like is more akin to a tech company than like an institution. Again, it's like, that notion of what you're saying of like, the student just needs help, so hopefully we can make sure that they're getting the help from the person who's going to be able to best serve them, whatever. So like, because I think higher institutions historically have more in common with like government services or whatever, where you're like trying to call the right office, and it's like, I need help, or it's like, I don't do that, you got to call this person, and like higher ed is more like that.
And we literally talk about that all the time. Yeah. Every single one of my team members is not going to pass a student off if they can solve it themselves. If they're on the phone, they're on a text with the student, like, I will figure it out for you. Give me a second. I may not have the answer, but I will figure it out. The last thing we want to do is pass the student to 5 different departments before they get an answer, because that, it puts them off and potentially kind of increases their distrust of a system, right?
Right. Because like that's for anybody, and like sometimes you even get it just in like any sort of customer service thing where it's just like, okay, like I am feeling as though I'm a like intrusion or like a whatever, trying to like make you actually just like do your job, but it's like, especially with these large institutions, like they just view it as kind of the monolith. Like it's just like, well, yeah. I'm going to University XYZ for help, like
And we want our students to feel known, because, and even I think this is what I want to comment on before, you have AI, maybe that, we have kind of imagine a bunch of AI solutions in the system. We have our people also as part of the solution. If a student is interacting with AI and they're kind of figuring out and moving forward, and then they talk to a counselor who has no idea what just happened there, that's not good. You want every interaction with the student to be kind of build an understanding of who they are so we can support you better. And I think, a couple of the sessions I've been has been like, we have to be responsible with the data. There's so much data out there. Like, what if we knew everything about a student? Probably not useful, right? Like, what are the things we need to know? So as we kind of have interactions and build this kind of understanding, we want every single interaction after that for the student to feel like, yeah, I already said that and you know it. That's great. So now we can kind of move forward, not just start over again from ground zero, right? Which is often what you get when you get passed down the phone. Like, all right, tell me your name again. Like, really? I just told you that 10 minutes ago to your, cousin Frank on the other line. So this really sense of know our student, support them, build trust, because again, these folks have not been served. Not all of them have been served before, and it's our job to build that trust, to empower them. There's a lot of work to do, but the outcomes can be incredible. And these are truly transformational experiences that shift lives, that shift families, and that is really ultimately our goal.
Well, I think because that is an amazing sentiment and just sort of call to action, I think we will leave it there, because honestly, my last question was just sort of like advice, and I think that's incredible advice. It's just sort of recognizing sort of the impact when you create a really positive, supportive, personalized, sort of flexible, adaptive. Like, these are all the words that I feel like, thankfully, are just coming up a lot in this conversation, but then just I feel like are what people are kind of grappling with is like, cool, that is what we're aiming for. how do we do it, especially if we're a 250-year-old institution or, whatever else. And, it's just like changing demographics of students and everything. So a lot to kind of interface with, but, excited that there's events like this and folks like you kind of working hard on figuring it all out. And just appreciate you for taking the time and, sharing your insights and experiences and everything, and for all the great work that you and your team do at Calbright. So we'll have ways to connect with you and the institution in the description.
Thanks so much, Dustin. It's been great chatting with you.
The Hired Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances you'll like all the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing constantly, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better hired professional. Our shows help you find your next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from people like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Dave Kibbolds, and Eddie Francis, as well as so many other of your favorite leaders in higher education. Enrollify is made possible by the support of Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.